Gulf of Mexico oil spill could damage deep coral. The mix of crude dispersants could smother life below the sea. Delicate coral reefs already have been tainted by plumes of crude oil spewing into the Gulf of Mexico, including a sensitive area that federal officials had tried to protect from drilling and other dangers. And marine scientists are worried even more of the deep-sea reefs could be damaged as a thick oil goo creeps into two powerful Gulf currents. The oil has seeped into areas that are essential to underwater life, and the reefs tend to be an indicator for sea health. When creatures in the reefs thrive, so do other marine life. And the loop current could carry oil from the spill east and spread it about 450 miles to the Florida Keys, while the Louisiana coastal current could move the oil as far west as central Texas. The depth of the gushing leaks and the use of more than 560,000 gallons of chemicals to disperse the oil, including unprecedented injections deep into the sea, have helped keep the crude beneath the sea surface, or in other words, out of sight. But marine scientists say diffusing and sinking the oil helps protect the surface species and the Gulf Coast shoreline, but increases the chance of harming or killing deep-sea reefs. At first we had a lot of concern about surface animals like turtles, whales, and dolphins, said a marine biologist at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, who studies Gulf reefs. Now we're concerned about everything. On Sunday, researchers said computer models show oil has already entered the loop current that could carry the toxic oil goo toward the Keys, the third longest barrier reef in the world. Focus on Pinnacles. The oil is now over the western edge of a roughly 61-mile expanse of 300 to 500 foot deep reefs south of Louisiana known as the Pinnacles, about 25 miles north of where the Deepwater Horizon exploded April 20th, killing 11 people, sinking and starting the spill that still grows by the hour, no matter what BP says. And, in other words, BP is downplaying the environmental consequences of this man-made disaster. And, possibly, they are telling lies, more lies. The Pinnacles is one of 9 coral banks in hard-bottom areas stretching from Texas to Florida that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration tried in 2008 to get designated as a marine sanctuary called Islands in the Stream. This sanctuary would have restricted fishing and oil drilling around the identified reef islands, but the plan was put on hold after vehement objections from Republican lawmakers, fishermen, and of course the oil industry. Scientists have found undersea plumes of oil at the spill as much as 10 miles long, which are an unprecedented danger to the deep-sea environment, said a professor of marine sciences at the University of Georgia. These oil plumes are being eaten by microbes thousands of feet deep, which removes oxygen from the water. Deepwater coral are abundant on the seafloor in this part of the Gulf, and they need oxygen. Without it, they can't survive. So, in other words, the dispersants sprayed under the oil or into the oil have also toxic consequences. Yes, they are toxic too. Experts say the whale's death and Friday's decision by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to allow BP to shoot massive amounts of dispersing chemicals deep underwater may help protect vital marshes and wetlands on the Gulf Coast, but there is a trade-off, and it may result in significant effects on more sea life. Oil mixed with the chemical agent can disperse into the water more easily, rather than it staying on the surface, where it could bypass deeper banks, like the pinnacles, said a chemical oceanography professor at the University of South Florida. Double whammy, could smother reefs. The downside is that it causes oil to sink, coating corals and other reef organisms, and smothering them. When the dispersed oil is broken into smaller globules, they are more easily eaten by smaller reef organisms and can kill them or cause tumors or something else harmful. Federal officials who oversee marine sanctuaries and fisheries say it's too early to tell how reefs and other important habitats may be damaged. The NOAA, which manages marine sanctuaries, is also responsible for estimating financial costs of the spill on the sea environment and fisheries. The pinnacles is a significant habitat for sea life, vital to commercial fisheries, such as red snapper, crab, and shrimp. The creation of a sanctuary across hundreds of miles of the Gulf would not have blocked oil and gas exploration, where the Deepwater Horizon exploded. However, it could have resulted in stricter environmental regulation for reefs, and likely less drilling. The area is also breeding ground for whales and bluefin tuna, species not doing very well. Studies published in a 2005 National Academy of Sciences report show that oil mixed with dispersants damaged certain corals' reproduction and deformed their larvae. The study concluded the federal government needed to study more before using massive amounts of dispersants. Reefs are made up of living creatures that excrete a hard calcium carbonate exoskeleton. Depending on the oil exposure, they can be smothered by the pollutants or become more susceptible to bleaching, which hinders reproduction and growth. As the oil spill increases, the oil oozes toward other reefs that stretch from the blowout site eastward to the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. If oil reaches the Keys, it could threaten one of the country's greatest underwater natural resources, as well as its tourism industry. Locals throughout the ribbon of islands not only relish their ties to the water, but rely on it to help bring in at least 2 million visitors each year. They're not going to come if our beaches are tarred and our mangroves have died and it's a polluted oil dump. They'll go somewhere else. And, again, the oil spill is being downplayed by BP, Transocean, whatever you want to call them. And possibly they're not really telling the whole truth. And these are more signs of the end times, transition days. John chapter 4, verse 35. Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then comes harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. And there are many signs happening daily all around the world.